Let's now extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Joan van Niekerk, child rights and child protection consultant, in order to help us further this topic. Doctor, it's a great pleasure having you on the show. Welcome. So it seems we never get this right when addressing this topical issue, right, of child protection and safety within our country. The basics would be the guiding framework as well as the implementation thereof of these sound policies and laws that seek to protect these children. We have them on paper, right? But we are dismal at enforcement and implementation. Where are we failing as a country? What can we do in this regard?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that we really do have enough law and policy that is finalized. About a decade ago, the SA Law Reform Commission was tasked with completing research on children and pornography. And a committee worked on this for several years. And the report on the inadequacy of the law as it presently stands was presented to the Department of Justice along with draft legislation. Sadly, the Department of Justice has done nothing with the draft legislation or the report. And so we do have some legislation, yes, but we need more. And what is actually frightening in this situation is technical advances are happening far more rapidly than the legal protection of children online. And so there are gaps. We've appealed to the Department of Justice to deal with the recommendations of the Law Reform Committee on many occasions. But unfortunately, there has been no action. Yes, we need to protect our children more with law and action.
Dr. van Niekerk, maybe if you would like to please share some of what was actually contained as part of those proposed or submitted draft policies to the Justice Department.
First of all, extra protections in terms of who should be held accountable. For example, the draft legislation actually required organizations like Meta and other service providers to provide the names and access to the identity of people who created this kind of material online. That at present is really up to the goodwill of these particular service providers. And most service providers, I must say, are very, very responsible here, but some are not. The other thing was, how do you deal with children who exchange these messages? Because obviously we have a Child Justice Act and children are curious about sex and often will exchange these messages with their friends, with their classmates and so on. So this particular piece of legislation made several recommendations with regard to how we deal with these children. We don't want to see increased criminalization of children as a result of their own innocence and curiosity, but there does need to be an intervention. So there are several recommendations, and for those people who are interested in how we can improve the law, please go onto the Law Reform Commission website and have a look at the draft proposals. But having said that, our progress in technology is so rapid that even some of these provisions are not adequate. And we need to constantly be revisiting our law and keeping it updated in such a rapidly progressing field.
Absolutely, Doctor. I mean, I'm sure you've also heard the heightened calls to normalize sexual education in schools because, I mean, if children, we know that in some families, it's still taboo to actually talk about sexual education. So as you just said, the children, out of curiosity, will then share this information among themselves. So let's talk about the fact that recently in the country, Doctor, there also has been some gruesome cases of child pornography here in the country. A couple is still in court after they were caught with such material just here in Midrand, and there is seemingly a prevalence of such cases, even sexual abuse leading to issues of human trafficking and so on. We are still trying to figure out what happened in the Kwekwe matter. So law enforcement in this regard really needs to be upgrading their efforts in combating such crimes.
Yeah, absolutely. You are so correct. And not only that, sometimes social media is used as a means of seducing a child into, first of all, sharing fairly innocent photographs and then more sexual material, pictures of themselves, etc. Then there's the contact abuse that might result from that, and then there is the trafficking of the child. And unfortunately, children tend to far outclass their parents in knowledge of how the internet works and so on. We've also come across children in the child protection field who are supporting their families through providing visual material of their bodies to offenders who will then put money into a child's account or sell them data or provide data for them. And sometimes parents have no idea of where this money is coming from or how vulnerable their children are. So there's a huge need for intersector working together. And this was another recommendation from this Law Reform Commission report. Our justice professionals, our police cannot work in their silos. They've got to be working with the Department of Basic Education. They've got to be working with child protection organizations. Cases that go to court should be workshopped to ensure that every possibility is explored in terms of what has happened between this offender and this child, and what don't we know about this particular relationship, whereas if we got together and shared that information, we would be dealing far more constructively with the case.
Absolutely, Doctor. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I was actually not happy about that because there's so much to unpack here. I mean, as you alluded to, these kids are often even groomed to sharing some of those innocent pictures. We're just talking about how some parents, even in far-flung areas, are using their children as a way to get out of poverty. So it's kind of getting enshrined into our societal efficiencies as well. So it's quite a huge problem. Doctor, otherwise, thank you so much for that great as well as valuable information. That is Dr. Joan van Niekerk there.